Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm doing my June TBR. Now this is going to be a little different than some of the TBRs I put out recently, and basically what has consistently happened over the past 2 months of my reading is I've done a fairly substantial TBR. I think both of them had around 12 books on them for April and May, and then as the month has progressed I've got more and more interested in mood reading. I've gone wildly off piece from my TBR. I've read a bunch of things that weren't on it originally and I felt quite bad about that, despite the fact that it's actually been the two best reading months of the year so far. I've read at least 1,000 pages more than the previous months, if not a little bit more, because of allowing myself to do mood reading. But because I've created this kind of artificial pressure of a TBR at the beginning of the month, it's made me feel a little bit crappy about my reading, even though objectively, against many other measures, my reading is doing the best it kind of has in quite a while. So I've decided I'm going to try and break this weird cycle that I've caught myself in for the month of June, and I'm going to give myself a dramatically reduced TBR of only 6 books, with the caveat being I'm definitely going to read more than 6 books, and I can basically pick whatever I want throughout the month, and I think that will really help to take some of the pressure off and stop this kind of weird artificial obligation I feel to my TBR. Not that anybody actually cares if I read the books that I say I'm going to read originally, but it's just something that kind of you can get caught up in the booktube hype of by accident, so I'm just trying to kind of break out of that today. So I have 3 fiction books and 3 non-fiction books that I'm hopefully going to get to in June, but if I don't get to them, that's totally okay. If I read a bunch of other stuff, that's also totally okay. The first one is Defy the Fates by Claudia Gray. This is book 3 of the Constellation trilogy, and it's a YA sci-fi romance. I won't go into too much detail about book 3 because obviously I don't want to spoil anything for the other 2 books, but book 1 is focused on an intergalactic battle between 2 different planets, one which kind of favours low tech and the other one who is really keen on artificial intelligence programs and robots, and it is about the fighter from one of them meeting a robot that seems to be more human-like than they should be. I might even go as far as to say it has a soul and kind of a personhood in his own right, and it's about their budding romance set in this backdrop of this intergalactic war. So like I said, this is book 3, this is the finale. They're quite fun reads, quite quick reads, and I really enjoy conversations about AI, personhood, identity, the self, etc, etc. So I'd love to finish this trilogy off, and it is on my kind of general 2021 TBR. A book that is left over from my 5-star predictions for the year is Playback by Raymond Chandler. This is a crime noir classic from the 1950s, give or take, and I don't know exactly what is about this one, but basically Philip Marlowe, who's the recurring character of Raymond Chandler's work, is a private investigator, and he gets embroiled in all sorts of ridiculous crime-ridden scandals. Like I said, I don't know the exact plotline of this particular one. I'm not overly interested in finding out beforehand. It's quite short. I really enjoy him. I think he's got a wonderful turn of phrase, and this will be the 4th Raymond Chandler once I actually finish it. And like I said, it's on a 5-star prediction because I've enjoyed so much of his work before, so I just want to kind of sit down and read a bit of cozy crime. The next one I want to read is James Baldwin's Another Country. James Baldwin is on my classics TBR for 2021, and this is the particular book of his that I have. I didn't kind of specify in that TBR which one of his titles, but this is one that I currently have, and this is about a jazz musician adrift in New York, and this was written in the 1960s, and James Baldwin often writes queer romances, often focused on men, and also writes about race and race relations, and this is going to be about kind of the Harlem jazz scene as sort of self-destructive musician. Again, similar to Raymond Chandler, he has a wonderful turn of phrase. It's really beautiful lyrical writing, and I read Giovanni's Room last year by him and really deeply enjoyed it, so I'm quite interested to see what else he can do. Now we're going to jump into my non-fiction TBR. One that I have on the go at the moment, but I definitely will not get finished before the end of this month, is On the Origin of Species by Charles Darwin. This is an absolutely iconic classic non-fiction. It is the text that put forward the theory of evolution, and like I said, I think I'm about 15-16% of the way through at the moment. It's slow going. I've learnt more about pigeons than I was expecting to, I'm not gonna lie, and it's the kind of thing that obviously the science is incredibly well known now because it is the theory of how we kind of understand life on our planet, but at the time was so incredibly groundbreaking. I think it's going to get a little bit better as the book goes, because at the moment we're just laying out the theory, of which, like I said, I kind of already know a decent amount about it, but I'm interested in sort of the end sections where he talks about ways that it solves problems that other theories can't in the time, and sort of common criticisms of it, and sort of does a bit more of a defense of it. I think that's gonna be a little bit more interesting from a history of ideas perspective. But I will slowly work my way through it. I've got it on audiobook and I'm just kind of chipping away. One that I'm really keen to jump into, and I might see if I can get an audiobook copy of this as well, is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. So this is a history of medicine, and in particular is about Henrietta Lacks, who her cancer cells were taken without her consent and then used in extensive amounts of research after she passed away. And it is about her story, kind of her life, and then also how this happened and the issues and sort of conflicts within the ethics of sort of medicine around it. It's supposed to be incredible, like it's incredibly popular. It's one of the like kind of top pop science books, and it's been around for quite a long time, so I think it's time I finally actually get around to reading it, because it has been on my kind of general TBR radar for ages, so I'd like to try and jump in. And then a memoir that I've had on my shelves for a little while. This was actually part of a subscription service that I get from a wonderful bookstore called Category is Books. That is a queer bookstore that is in Scotland, but they post nationwide, and this was one of the first books they sent me on their monthly subscription, and that is Life is a Unicorn by Amrou Al-Kahdi. Apologies, I didn't clock that there. So Amrou is actually non-binary and has a drag queen alter ego called Glamrou, who was part of a troupe called Denim, which was actually founded at my university. So I'm really interested to jump in with this memoir. It does talk about Amrou's time at Cambridge, and I think it's going to be really intriguing to kind of see, and I hope it will be in some ways slightly nostalgic, but obviously not, because we have very, very different life experiences. It's also been a little while since I read a memoir, so I'm really keen to kind of jump in, and I think this will be really good. I've heard that it is hilarious, and having seen Glamour in action, I can assume it's going to be very funny. So those are the 6 books that I'm going to try and prioritise. Obviously, if I have anything that drifts over from May other than The Origin of Species, that will be there as well. But I'm just trying to give myself permission to mood read, allow my brain to kind of pick whatever books it wants, whatever genre. Like in the month of May, I had an entire week where all I did was read contemporary romance. I'm going to do an entire separate wrap up for the contemporary romances I read in May, because I read so many of them in such a short window of time. So I'm just going to kind of let stuff like that happen. If I want to sit and binge read the Animals books over 4 days, that's fine. So we'll see at the end of June whether this has changed kind of how I feel about my reading. Do let me know in the comments down below if you struggle sometimes with TBRs, or kind of feeling pressure if you have some form of online presence about books, whether it be Bookstagram or BookTube or a book blog or whatever, whether that kind of creates an artificial pressure to sort of read particular books off your shelf, and what do you do to kind of combat it. And also do let me know if you have any thoughts or opinions on the books on my TBR, and as always, have a wonderful reading week, and I will chat to you soon. Bye!